Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We're 25 days away from what would be the biggest strike in recent history in the United Corporations of America. Yesterday, hundreds of UAW workers, Ford, Stellantis, GM, came out to rally ahead of this week's strike authorization vote. And let's just say UAW President Shawn Fain rev them up.
I got a question for you. Are you ready to rumble?
Well, I would say that's definitely a message from all reports, photos. There were hundreds of UAW workers there, people ready to go on strike, folks who have been auto workers at the Big Three for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and have not felt this level of solidarity in a long time. So, of course, in anticipation of a possible massive strike, we're talking 150,000 workers, let's just say the Big Three are preparing in their own way. Let's take a look from an interview I just did with one UAW worker.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but at Stellantis, they put all their plants on critical status, and they have to work 90 days straight.
Yeah.
Our plant just got a call the other day, the day before yesterday, that production is going to be required to work 11 and a half hour shifts. And that's just grueling work. It wears your body down. And I'm lucky enough to be a skilled trades person, but I've worked the assembly line early in my career, and I know what that's like. And it is no joke trying to chase those cars down the line and keep up with it. And get you don't even have time really to have a sip of water in between cars. It took me 2 weeks to be able to have that luxury. Those are grueling jobs that really wear your body down.
So they are doing this because the Big Three are very, very, very obviously expecting a strike that could go weeks, if not months, and they want to grind these workers down to a bloody pulp if needed to beef up production so that they're not losing tons of money and they already have as much parts and production ready to go. Listen to this report from big ally of the auto industry and corporate America, CNBC, which will tell you exactly what the Big Three automakers are up to try and grind down the workers ahead of a strike.
Hey, Scott, for the UAW, we're about 3 weeks away from when we finally see whether or not there's going to be a strike or work stoppage of some sort. Everybody expects it in Detroit and in the auto industry. So for the Big Three, this means building up their inventory. This is the day's supply calculation as of the end of July, according to Cox Automotive. Look at Stellantis. And this has been widely reported in the industry that they've been cranking up production. They know what's coming. Then you have Ford. GM is at 59 days supply. By the way, normal day supply in a normal market, non-possible strike, is 65 to 75 days. By the way, we should also point out that J.D. Power has its own calculation showing that the level of manufacturing, while it has improved since last year, the inventory is only at 36 days, half of where it was 4 years ago when the UAW had a strike at General Motors, which lasted for about 40 days. This all comes down to hourly costs. And if you were the Big Three and the hourly cost for your labor on the line is $63 to $67, compare that with foreign automakers in the U.S. and then to Tesla. And that's really the focus here because they're transitioning, the Big Three are transitioning into more EV production in the future. Everybody knows that. And it takes fewer workers to build an electric vehicle. Tesla holds a huge cost advantage there. As you take a look at shares of GM, Ford, and Stellantis over the last 3 months, remember that the UAW president has said, and he said it yesterday at a rally in Detroit, they do not expect to extend this contract beyond September 14th, which they sometimes do, often do when these contract talks come up. So we are looking at likely some type of a work stoppage, maybe at one or all three of the automakers come September 15th. One last thing to consider, guys. We talk about a strike from the UAW. What if the Big Three, one of them says, you know what? Fine. You want to have somebody go on strike at an engine plant? We're locking you out. everybody, all 40 or 45,000 of you are locked out. That would send a message, and it's not far-fetched with the inventory levels that some of the big three have right now.
Phil, appreciate it very much.
So we have these automakers basically, working these workers like slaves. Stellantis, 90 days straight, you have to work. Scott from Ford, they're working 11.5-hour shifts, all in anticipation of what pretty clearly looks like a definite strike at this point, so that they don't lose that much money because they've already worked these workers down to a bloody pulp to beef up production. But I don't know if this CNBC guy realizes you want to lock out 40 to 45,000 workers at an engine plant. Well, I mean, sure, you're going to get scabs, the rats, as they call it, to replace the striking workers. But good luck getting 40 to 45,000 of them. Then, as we've seen with other strikes I've covered, John Deere workers who went on strike, then a lot of these companies end up getting white-collar workers, literally from the corporate suites, to go out there and work hardcore, blue-collar, get your hands dirty kind of jobs. That's probably what Stellantis, GM, and Ford are going to have to resort to, because you're not going to get enough scabs to replace those striking workers. And they're probably going to end up trying to get white-collar workers to come in and do jobs that they have no training and no skills to do, which is kind of dangerous. But what do they care? They're not really concerned about worker injury or anything like that. I want to zero in on one of the things CNBC there showed. Basically, this comes down to hourly wages, because right now it's between $63 and $67 an hour compared to Tesla at $45 an hour because it's cheaper to make electric vehicles. Well, all of these companies are making billions of dollars a year in profit. Billions of dollars a year in profit. So really, this comes down to them not wanting to make, I don't know, hundreds of millions in profit. Hell, I think they'd still make billions in profit if they paid the workers what they're actually worth, because you'd probably have happier workers, maybe even more productive workers, even though auto workers have been, really, really, really incredibly productive over the years as they've been exploited over and over and over. So we're talking a $20 an hour difference with CNBC's comparing what auto workers are getting paid or want to get paid compared to Tesla workers. That's the greed of these corporations that, oh no, we can't, take a little bit less. We'll still make billions, but not the 13, 14, 15 billion a year in profit. I interviewed Scott Holdison. He is the chair of Unite All Workers for Democracy. That's the reform group that really was instrumental in driving the new UAW elections, direct one person, one vote elections that ended up electing Shawn Fain as president earlier this year. I interviewed him over the weekend, and I asked him, are you all prepared for a long strike? Because it looks like that might be what it comes down to. Let's take a listen to what he said. Obviously it becomes harder to keep up the energy, to keep up the spirit. There's more anxiety that seeps in. More workers, a lot of times have to go find other work while they're striking. Are you prepared for that? Because, you never know. A strike could last a week. A strike could last months.
Well, we're doing our best to make sure our members are prepared for that. I'm certainly prepared for that. I remember in 1976, the last time Ford was on strike, my dad was working at the Chicago stamping plant, and he was on strike. He picked up a job at a filling station. That's when they still pump your gas for you, and he was doing whatever he had to do to help his family survive. And because of that, we had better benefits than we would have had. Some of those have been cast aside through negotiations under duress, under corrupt circumstances. But now it's time for us to fight to get those things back.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking what a radical, or as CNBC calls Shawn Fain, the UAW president, a Trotskyite. Listen, I think this is headed for a long strike that is frankly bigger than just the auto industry versus these greedy companies. I think really what we're going to see is a standoff and a class war, a standoff as far as the 40-year class war, because basically these corporations, Stellantis, Ford, GM, I mean, you could interchange them with Walmart. You could interchange them with Home Depot, Target, Amazon, you name it. It's the same thing, just in a different industry. These companies have been coming up with excuse after excuse after excuse, rationalizations. We need to stay competitive. If we have to, raise wages to what they're asking, we won't be able to compete. We'll have to shut down. Costs for customers will go up, blah, 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 blah. It's all bullshit. And CNBC will never tell you that, just like CNBC will never have Scott or the actual auto workers on, because they exist to push the corporate line and corporate propaganda. But as we see, I don't think this UAW president, Shawn Fain, is messing around. And I think these workers are ready to go to the mat. And of course, we are going to see more of this. Stellantis discussing moving pickup truck production from the U.S. to Mexico as a threat before the strike. We will see more of that, where companies like Stellantis, Ford, GM say, well, if you want your wages increased to this point, we might just have to take our ball and go to Mexico or China or wherever. This is the problem with the United Corporations of America, where you're no longer a country, you're just one multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate masquerading as a country. And you don't have a government, you basically have elected puppets who work for GM, Ford, Stellantis, Amazon, Walmart, etc. But I am very, very, very optimistic because I think at the end of the day, there's more of us than there are them. And how they continue to thrive and maintain the status quo is by threats, intimidation, and divide and conquer, which is why solidarity is so important. And that's why I asked Scott, are you prepared? Because, first week or two of a strike, everybody's ramped up, energized, camaraderie, the cars are honking. But then you get, a couple weeks in, a couple months, the pressures are on there. Families are, really, really stretched thin. Obviously, you're not making your full salary, health benefits when you're on strike. People are having a strike, people on strike, having to pick up extra jobs, marriages get stressed, this and that. Are you prepared for the long haul? I think they are. It's not going to be easy, but I think they are. And frankly, I think it's what's necessary. Clearly, we're not going to get structural change from electoral politics. Doesn't mean don't vote, but it does mean it's going to take workers directly fighting back. 25 days away. We would like to be on the ground. So make sure, if you're not yet a Status Coup member, sign up today. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a paying member for $5 to $10 a month. Help us fund on the ground reporting from the picket lines, because we would like to go and cover it if they strike.